What is the latest, everyone, and welcome to our special edition NBA Draft in the Paint show presented by Ballislife. Devin Ugland and Ronnie Flores here with you for another episode, technically episode number 102, but in this show specifically we're going to focus on the 221 NBA Draft, give you guys some thoughts, some themes, guys we like as sleepers, and guys who, may be not as good as advertised coming into this year's draft. But first, Ronnie, let's jump into the NBA Finals. Giannis Antetokounmpo, he did it, man. He did it with the Bucks roster with one superstar himself and a roster that was developed and built around him. And they beat the Suns in 6 games. Yeah. He had 50 points in the Game 6 sealing game and just dominated from the outset, especially in the game 4, games 5 and game 6, Ronnie. What were your overall thoughts about Giannis and his ability to win a title with that style of roster when now we're used to, 2 or 3 superstars per team winning NBA championships?
Yeah, my initial thought is it's a great thing because it shows that most likely if you build a team and you hit it right in the draft, as obviously the Bucks did when they drafted Giannis 15, it can work. It can work still. I mean, you don't have to kind of negotiate or manipulate like salary caps or hey, we're going to go to this team in a couple years. Join me in that team, buddies that maybe grew up together or got to know each other on the AAU circuit or something like that in the All-Star circuit. It can work the way the Bucks did it. I think that kind of shows that the Bucks obviously played really well together, and then I think there were some pointed moments that I saw in the series. First is Monty Williams' decision to sit Booker when he had 5 fouls and the Suns could have potentially took a 3-1 lead. He sat for 4:58 of that third going into the fourth quarter. Again, if he stays in the game, maybe they build that lead and maybe he has a 50-point game, a monster game, maybe he has 55 points. And maybe even if he gets fouls, let's say he gets a foul with 4 minutes to go or 3 minutes to go, maybe they have a big enough lead to hold on and take a 3-1 lead. If they take a 3-1 lead, this series is still going till 7. Mm-hmm. So that I thought was a big moment. He came back in, but he only went 2 for 6. And then the ironic thing is he fouled that would have fouled him out and they didn't call it. Like he tackled Drew Holiday, they didn't call it. So in that notion of him being a superstar player, which he pretty much is, he really is going to have to foul. I mean, he's really going to have to slug somebody to get foul out. So why take him out when they didn't even call it when he did foul? I just think that was a big moment in the series. Okay, and then obviously the second moment, which you can comment on both of them, is at some point in Game 6, you're going to see that Giannis is going to have an all-time game. Mm-hmm. You can see that maybe by the middle of the second quarter, definitely by beginning of third quarter. I thought you had to change the strategy. Ayton couldn't keep in front of him. You had to double at the top of the key, rush another guy. You had to make that adjustment right. It looked like he was going for 40 or 50 points. So
yeah. To your first point with Booker, that's such a tough call because you don't know what the official's thinking. You got 3 guys with whistles in their mouths. You don't know what they're going to call and what they're not going to call. I do agree that was a big turning point in the series. And especially in that game, which eventually turned into, the series turning point.
The Suns never won again. Yeah.
They didn't win a game after that, right? And having your star player and your best scorer on the bench for that long and that important of a stretch is tough. It's a tough call, and maybe it was the wrong call, but who knows? We're not going to know because we don't know if Devin Booker was going to catch a foul in that 4:58 stat, Ronnie.
Yeah, it was just ironic because most people think he fouled 2 times again, and he did. That's what was ironic about it. In my mind, I want to stay with the hot hand. Just pull him out for a minute or so. Say, hey, relax, no problem. We got this. Just don't foul, do anything dumb. And then maybe he has a monster game. He was on his way to he did have a monster game, but he did finish 2 for 6. And then what do you think about the Game 6? Like, Ayton needed some help. Maybe the foot speed was just too much. Giannis was on a roll, and it just kept going until he had a 50-point game.
Yeah, so what I think happened was Giannis saw all that room to get going, right? All that room that Ayton was giving
downhill.
him. Yeah. And he just got downhill whenever he wanted, got past Ayton, got to the foul line, and here's the kicker, Ronnie. He made 17 of 19 free throws. And
he made his free throws. Yeah.
He made his free throws. So if he's making 90+% of his free throws, you're going to lose that game. Doesn't matter what else you do, you're going to lose that game if Giannis is hitting free throws at that clip. And as soon as he got confident and that crowd behind him was in favor of him and not counting how many seconds it took him to shoot a free throw, he was comfortable. He was in. He was at home. He was in.
And that's why I think you got to make an adjustment. And I want to give shout out to Drew Holiday. He did a great job on Devin Booker and at times I guess Chris Paul. He really he had a couple games that were poor offensively, but he did great things defensively, and he obviously had a great offensive game in Game 5. But his defense made a big difference. Just his playmaking in general made a big difference
for sure. And
he didn't shoot well, but he did well.
Yeah, you got to take the shots. So even if you're not shooting well as a point guard, you've got to be able to take those shots to keep the defense honest. And to your point, you got to throw some kind of different defensive package at Giannis. Throw him a different look, double team him, get him off the ball. Don't let him just walk up the court and initiate a downhill drive in 2 feet into the paint every single time down the court, because that's what he was doing. Well, a guy like that,
he's going left or right. He's going to come back to his right hand, but he's still going left, and Ayton just didn't have.
Yeah, he's going left. He's going to spin around Ayton. He's going to get fouled, or he's going to make a shot, and that's what happened. And they didn't really adjust to stopping that, whether it's throwing an extra body or two at him, making somebody else beat them. I mean, they let one of the top 3 players in the world just have his way and beat them in to his strengths. They didn't even try to get him out of his strengths.
Correct.
I guess they were baiting him. I guess they were baiting him to shoot a 3 with that lax defense, like Rondo defense.
He did once.
Yeah, but he wised up to it and was like, "Screw that! I can just no one's coming to help or no one's."
I'll reset and redrive.
Yeah. Yeah, you just back it out and drive back in. That's all he did the whole game. And I mean, credit to him for just taking advantage of what the defense gives him. That's kind of what you teach children, right? At a young age, basic basketball. Take what the defense gives you, and that's what he did. And Chris Middleton was getting a lot of credit during this playoff run, and especially in the finals. And I think it was deserving, right? A lot of people were like, "Oh yeah, Chris Middleton's the Batman and Giannis is the Robin." Whether it was like the talking heads on ESPN or whatever it was. Obviously that's not true. That's false. But Chris Middleton is one hell of a Robin. Yeah,
and I think what this series proved is that Devin Booker's got to be on his game, and he is the Suns' best player. At no point in that game did I thought whether it was Booker, and I'm speaking of Game 6, Chris Paul or anybody else was going to offset Giannis. They were going to have to win, get hot from 3, but it was not like I thought in the second half, Chris Paul's going to have a monster second half and offset what Giannis was probably going to do, which was score another, 20 points in the second half. I think he had a monster third quarter. You can kind of see that coming. And nobody from the Suns offset that. There was any time in that second half where I thought, okay, now Booker or Chris Paul's going to take over. It just didn't have that feel to it. Maybe because it's a road game. Maybe because it takes a special performance to do that. They did a pretty good job on Devin Booker.
Well, so, guys eventually run out of gas, and I'm not saying Booker or Chris Paul ran out of gas. It just looked like from a team standpoint, the wind was out of their sails in that second half when Giannis just kept going. As soon as he kept hitting free throws in the second half, that's when the body language kind of changed. And like, dang, I'm not sure we can overcome this if Giannis is hitting his free throws like that.
Correct. You just knew that. Obviously, I don't want to put all the blame on Booker or Paul, but they're the two leaders, that they weren't going to have an 18-point fourth quarter. It just didn't. You knew that in the third quarter. Like you said, the body language, their energy level just wasn't there. So very interesting for Middleton, because I guess he's one of the first G League players to make the All-Star game. Is that accurate? Or one of to be a star player on the team? He came from the G League. So
you're the historian, so you know better than I do.
Yeah, very interesting as we pertain to this NBA draft, as we talk about this draft. I think this Giannis story is always going to be big, Devin. Why? Because obviously his Nigerian background, he grew up in Greece. That's always going to resonate. But he was the 15th pick in a draft where Anthony Bennett went number 1. That's always going to be remembered. So that kind of takes us to our topic now of this draft. Obviously, this top of the draft is supposed to be a lot stronger than that top of the draft. You know, the first 4 or 5 picks are supposed to be a lot stronger than Anthony Bennett was in that draft, way stronger. So, you know, that's the first theme is those top picks are supposed to be game-changing players. We know those players well. We followed them well. You know, is that true, I guess, or is this draft really quote-unquote deep like people are saying? Is it not? I have my thoughts. I want to hear your overall thoughts right now on the draft, just general highlight, and then I guess where does that – are those 4 guys that we're speaking of, and we'll get into them a little bit, that good?
I think it's going to be similar to the 2020 draft where Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, James Wiseman, even though he got hurt, he showed flashes of being really good. You know, the first 3, 4, 5 picks were going to come in and be solid from the get-go. And obviously, Edwards and LaMelo Ball were, you know, great, had great rookie seasons. LaMelo Ball won Rookie of the Year, and Anthony Edwards, Rookie of the Year runner-up. But I think we're going to see a lot of guys as we move down the first round and into maybe even the high second round, mid-second round, guys who just kind of pop up out of nowhere and are better than expected and play higher than what their pick was. Because we're coming off of a year of, you know, limited visibility as far as college basketball goes. Shortened schedules, right? Less TV games for the smaller market teams. And the NBA franchises have to do more due diligence, more background stuff, more film watching to find out what these guys are all about, like a guy like Kessler Edwards at Pepperdine. A guy like that who's in the NBA draft. Like, what is Kessler Edwards all about? Not a lot of NBA GMs, I'm assuming, got to go to a Pepperdine practice or a Pepperdine game within the last 2 years because of COVID. So
yeah, the way.
So I think
they've got to catch up. They got to catch up on these guys.
Yeah, so I think you know, we'll see some mid-first round guys who end up being really good, and we'll see some second-round guys who end up being really good. And I think the top 4, in my opinion, Ronnie, the top 4 picks of this 221 draft are guys who will come in and impact immediately. Cade Cunningham, Evan Mobley, Jalen Green, and Jalen Suggs. I like those 4 guys to come in and be guys who come in and can play meaningful minutes right away. Because if we start with Cade Cunningham, he has the total package. We've talked about him a lot on our show. We've done an On the Rise on Cade Cunningham. Go to the Ballislife podcast network, and you can watch our video on Cade Cunningham where we break down his full game. Evan Mobley, defensive game changer, right? Ability to run the floor, finish, good hands, good feet, good touch. And then you have Jalen Green, who's a dynamic athlete, Ronnie, a guy who can score in a variety of ways, improve jump shot, but again, a high flyer who I guess in space, that's where he excels. And that's the name of the game in the NBA right now is space, Ronnie, because you can't guard anybody like you did in the 90s. You have to give them freedom of movement. And if you give Jalen Green freedom of movement with his athleticism and his length and his creativity with the ball, he's really hard to cover. And then Jalen Thugs, the last of the 4 guys, the guy who I think is going number 4. We'll pull up the draft board a little bit later, Ronnie, but the guy who I think is going number 4, Jalen Suggs, he proved himself as a big-time point guard in the NCAA tournament for Gonzaga in 220 or 221. I'm so lost right now.
Yeah.
The 221 NCAA tournament.
221 NCAA tournament,
Yeah. I feel like it was like 5 years ago now.
Yeah.
He proved himself as a big game player and a guy who is, you know, has the build, the mentality, the kind of clutch gene, and, you know, just carries himself in a way that you expect an NBA point guard to carry himself. What is your thoughts on the top half of the lottery, I would say?
Yeah. So I'm with you on your initial prediction or initial analysis that the 4 picks are like the real draft starts at the 5th pick.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to get a pretty good pick, pretty good player at the top 4. My other kind of theme there right now, I'm looking at the picks and trying to see what people need, obviously, and a little bit of the picks are what's the Thunder going to do with all those picks, the Oklahoma City Thunder. So that comes in at around right after the lottery, 16 and 18. And then what are the Rockets going to do as they're in rebuilding 23 and 24 back? They kind of don't need 23 and 24 back to back. Similar as the Thunder don't need those two picks. So Golden State kind of comes into to play a little bit. They got a pretty good nucleus if they can be healthy. Again, their window with the group they have, the core is not big, but what do they do at 7? You know, they go for like a backup point guard or a point guard that's going to come in and help, or do they you know, just get the best player available, that type of thing. So those are a few teams I see that, you know, what are they going to do? You know, obviously there's a lot of good players in this lottery. I would say more than people thought in that Giannis draft, because people didn't know who was going number 1. Obviously, if people knew what they knew now, Giannis would be number 1, but that's not how it worked out, and that's how it never works out. You got to project. Especially now, you got to really project, because this is a small window sample size for most of these guys. Very few guys have a big one. They just don't. They're just not in college that long. I mean, just kind of peeking at your board, I guess the first guy that would be in college for a long time would be Davion Mitchell, who could go, you know, 7, 8, 9, 10 in that range. The point guard from the NCAA champ Baylor Bears. So Baylor has a couple guards, and it's very interesting, you know, where are they going to fit. So we're looking at your board now. Obviously, I gave some of my input. Cade Cunningham at 1, Mobley at 2. There's a lot of people that think Green could go 2. Green in 3rd, Jalen Suggs 4. So then the big question is, do the Orlando Magic take Scottie Barnes at 5, or is that the guy they want? Or are they going to try to move it? Is somebody going to try to get in that spot? Does somebody want the first 2 or 3 spots with Cleveland? You know, is Cleveland going to unload some of the guards they have? Are they going to move on from Colin Sexton already? Or, you know, does Cleveland really hope that the Rockets take Green so they can get Mobley?
Right.
You know, because, hey, we like our guards. We want to try to keep them. We want a big guy. So those are questions. Looks like Detroit's going to keep the number 1 pick for now. Again, we're a week out. I know you can update your board, guys, as we shoot this. You know, people that are watching this, listening to this. This is about a week out. We're about literally a week away from the first pick, literally by the hour. So it's like, obviously, Devin, you may update this board a little bit between now and maybe Wednesday, and then, you know, we'll stop. We're not going to try to pull any funny business and update it later, but at some point you're going to stop updating it. You'll make little tweaks to it, and that's what I kind of see at the top. You know, what does Cleveland want to do with the roster they have now? Obviously, the Rockets need good players. They have a good core. You know, Christian Wood's a good place to start. And then what are the Magic trying to do?
Those are great questions, and I think a lot of it's going to be best player available, honestly, in this draft, because of the lack of visibility or the lack of evaluation time. The Jalen Green, Evan Mobley situation is interesting to me, because I just think nobody wants to go to Cleveland. That's what I think. Everyone is just trying to avoid going to Cleveland. I'm pretty sure there's been some things put out from Jalen Green's camp that I saw on Twitter, whatever it is, that they don't want to be in Cleveland. And I'm sure a lot of draftees feel the same. I'm sure
they may not admit it, but
I mean, they're not going to admit it. But again, just that track record without LeBron James on the roster, the track record's not great. And I think it's going to be interesting to see what they do with Colin Sexton. I'm pretty sure they're gonna keep Darius Garland, who I think fits what they want, what they do well, and fits in the NBA well. I think Mobley and Green could be flip-flopped here for sure. And then, I think as we scroll down a little bit, the draft starts here at number 5, Ronnie, with Orlando. It's going to be team need and best available. Scottie Barnes, the reason I have him there is he's a local guy. He's that area. He'll bring some fans into the stands, and he'll
gives you a lot.
He gives you a lot of different things. He's versatile at 6'8". He can handle it, pass it, score it, good rebounder. We saw him a lot at the Pangos All-American camp or various camps that we've seen since he was younger, and just a guy who kind of brings leadership to the court. Golden State's another interesting team because you don't know the health of Klay Thompson, right? You don't know. Yeah. Steph Curry got healthy later on and was great, obviously. When he's healthy, he's fantastic, obviously. But a lot of the chatter is, we got to move on from Wiseman because we need to win now. I'm not sure if you've seen that stuff going on various things. Like, are the Warriors actually thinking about moving their second overall
packaging Wiseman?
Yeah, in a pick for somebody who can help them win right now. I don't know. I have Davion Mitchell here because he's a high level defender and a guy who can score a little bit, a guy who's kind of a leader, and obviously not the same height as Klay Thompson at 6'6", but brings similar traits to the game as Klay Thompson. Yeah. And they went big in the draft last year, so I think that they need to start building for the future with a guard.
They got to build. They got to get a guard, a backup guard, a younger guard. Curry only has so many seasons left.
I mean, they should have gone with LaMelo Ball last year. I mean, it was a no-brainer.
I was just going to bring that up. Yeah. You mentioned that in last year's draft. And on our show, you mentioned, dude, don't pass up LaMelo Ball, and then you have your future in the backcourt kind of set. Now you're saying, well, they kind of would package Wiseman because they want to win now, kind of where they were last year. Yeah. Except they have a nice asset in Wiseman. He's still, I think, a pretty good asset to have in your franchise. You can get something if that's what you intend to do with him and number 7 or something of that nature. Or you pick at number 7 for somebody else, in essence, which we're going to see a little bit of that in this draft, I think, especially, like I said, with the Rockets and with Oklahoma City.
Yeah, many picks.
They have so many picks. They're right there at number 6. Like you have Jonathan Kuminga. They're one of the youngest guys in this draft, one of the kind of the guys with maybe some upside in this draft. You don't know exactly what you're getting, but he has a lot of it. He has a lot of potential.
Yep.
They can package that, move him with maybe a team that wants him for later that doesn't have that set, or maybe somebody else moves into that 6th pick. So If you look at these consensus rankings all the way to the right on the board, if you guys are watching this, Kuminga was kind of like a number 1 type of guy in his class originally. Then you see these guys above. Suggs was very high rated. He was probably underrated, 9.33. Barnes was like 6 in that range, right where he's going to get drafted. Yep. And then you played Cunningham and Mobley are right where they're drafted. Cunningham, Mobley, and Green are right kind of where we expected out of high school. Then when you get to the Davion Mitchell pick is where it all changes.
Yep, look at this. 68.
Yeah, 68, 19. That's where guys, we don't, where they have to build their resume to get there, to get that high in the draft. They either have more seasoning, college seasoning, or people didn't expect them that as college prospects coming into from high school, and then that's a great thing. I mean, wasn't Mitchell at another school? Baylor's team almost all transferred in.
Yeah,
so it's very interesting how good they're considered and how good of a prospects they were coming in. So, that's very kind of a theme of this draft is when you get to that Mitchell pick, it's a way different feel than looking at where they were ranked in high school, which is kind of what we and you kind of excel at, or kind of our strength. And then we get into how they are in the draft, because this is obviously 1 year later for most of these guys.
Right.
So you mentioned Melo. I wanted to give you a shout out as back to that last year. You were high on Tyrese Halliburton, and one of my guys was the guy in Detroit from La Lemire, who I kept saying should go, he should go, and they did well. So now we're trying to do that again.
Yeah,
like Isaiah Stewart. That's what you mentioned.
Another guy I liked who was Pistons draft picked as well and was a first team All NBA rookie guy was Saddiq Bey from Villanova. I think anytime you pick somebody from Villanova, you look at Mikal Bridges with the Suns, you're getting a guy who knows how to play basketball, who's been taught the game at a high level. And Villanova guys always come into the NBA ready to contribute on both ends of the floor. Just to finish out the rankings point, Ronnie, you look at Franz Wagner. Obviously, he went to Michigan and he's not ranked, but he played overseas, right, before coming here and playing college basketball. Corey Kispert from Gonzaga. Have him going 11 to the Hornets because of his shooting ability, Ronnie. Spread the floor, give LaMelo Ball another weapon out of ball screens, a guy who can catch and shoot and one dribble pull up, and with good size at 6'7", obviously from a legit college program of Gonzaga, proven winner, and he was not ranked, Ronnie. He's an American player, American high school player, not ranked by any recruiting service.
In the top 100, yeah.
And, yeah.
Obviously, it can go down, but 200, but like in the top 100, what people care about, or what people. Because after you get past 100, it's a crapshoot anyway. So
for sure. And then one of the kind of wild cards, Ronnie, that has jumped out onto everyone's draft boards is Josh Giddy, a 6'9" point guard from Australia. And we watched some of his highlights. His team reached out to us at Ballislife and was like, "You got to watch this kid's highlights. He's amazing." And they're right. He's a good player. He's
an intriguing player.
Yeah, he's a really good player, really smart, crafty, high IQ, and I think him going to San Antonio would be a nice little fit there with the way that San Antonio plays, with the way Greg Popovich coaches. I think that's a nice fit. And to round out the lottery, which would be 13 and 14, Ronnie, Kai Jones from Texas, 6'11", just freakish athlete. I think he fits well in a high motor 4 or undersized 5 role in the NBA, just catching lobs, blocking shots, energy guy. And then Jaylen Johnson, who was a high level recruit coming out of high school, Ronnie. I think before his overall ranking dropped to about 11. I think he was high. I think he was in like a top 5 or top 6.
He was higher because he missed most of his senior year. That was the year that, and we'll get into this, is that he was expected to play for IMG on a very good team, and then he left by Thanksgiving, and that kind of catapulted that Mcbride team, which we're going to talk a little bit about in the next 2 episodes in the draft special. And make sure you guys tune into the draft special the day of the draft. We'll jump on about 45 minutes before it actually starts. Maybe 3:30 Pacific, 7:30, or 6:30 Eastern that day. But and one of the things we're going to talk about is that Mcbride Academy team. So because they beat IMG 3 times that year. One game was only close game. But how would have gone if Jaylen Johnson was on that IMG team? That could have, they might have beat him once out of those 3 times, maybe not, but it would have been something that's what we were kind of anticipating. Then he left the team. He went back to Nicollet High School in Wisconsin, where he's originally from. And then he joins Duke, like you said, as a highly ranked guy, maybe a little bit lower than people expected. If he would have finished out that season, people kind of dinged him. Mm-hmm. And then he goes to Duke and he doesn't finish out that season. He played, and I have it here in my notes. Jaylen Johnson ended up playing 13 games for Duke, 11.2 points, 6.1 rebounds, 52% from the field, 44.4% from the 3. So he actually has some ability, Devin. Do you think he's being knocked again, just like he was in those rankings, or do you think people are going to do their intel, do their homework, and he's going about right where he should at 14, or you think that's still based on some people are going to pass on him because they want a guy who's all engaged. They want a guy who doesn't have any questions about his love for the game, or maybe buying into a team chemistry or team atmosphere.
I hate to speculate on a guy's buy-in or a guy's character or young player, but just track record. NBA teams are going to reach out to IMG's coach. And
a bunch of other people,
They're going to reach out they're going
to
reach out to the Knight Riders coach. They're going to reach out to the Duke coaching staff to talk about this kid, and those guys will tell the truth. So I think with this spot at 14 to the Warriors, I think that's a good culture for him to go into.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like with Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and Draymond Green, I think it's a good culture. A team-style culture that he could buy into, and I think that would be a good fit for him. Because skill set-wise and size-wise, Ronnie, and the whole package that he has, he's a top 5 talent.
Yeah, he is a top 5 talent in his class, and maybe a top 10 talent in this draft.
Because could Scottie Barnes is at number 5. I could see Jaylen Johnson being as productive, if not more productive, than Scottie Barnes in the NBA, just because his skill set, especially his perimeter shooting, is a little bit better than Scottie Barnes. His 3-point shooting. Sure. And man, I think he's definitely, at this spot, this 14 spot, because of his track record with IMG and with Duke and kind of the issues that came to light when he left Duke. But I think that is, that's kind of why he's at this rank here, Ronnie.
That rank, that makes sense. And like you said, Scottie Barnes, 10.3 points, 4 rebounds, 4 assists, terrific all-around player. Then the like you said, the red flag that everybody's gonna try to dissect in the next week, the 27.5% from the 3-point line.
Yeah.
From the college 3-point line.
Yeah, from the college 3-point line. And we know when that NBA 3-point line comes back even further, it's really tough for guys to adjust. But real quick, before we move into our next draft topic, make sure you guys go to ballislife.com. Check out our players tab or our profiles tab right here. And you can see almost any player you want from like now, 225s until, let me click on it here, Ronnie. We can check it out real quick. Yeah. Graduation year. Let's go to 1956 just for fun. Filter.
How about we rather not?
Oh, there is none. Come on, Ronnie. Oh, no, there is.
Yeah, there's top high school players in 1956. Just
obviously we don't have pictures of these guys. We should get a picture.
Lenny Wilkins from Boys High.
Yeah.
Providence College, just good information about him. So that's to your point. If we're going to keep filling it up, we keep adding more stuff all the time.
As you can see,
and obviously it's robust for a guy like Scottie Barnes.
Yeah.
Obviously he played on that. He played on that Knight Riders team as well. Look at his ranking, 9-4-6. So again, looks like ESPN looked at his like all the things he can do, defend, lead. They put him at 4, whereas 2-4-7 is like, we don't know about that shooting. Let's put him 9, or they had him 9.
Yep.
And that's a question I have, and he's kind of one of my enigmas in this draft, Devin. It's very tough at 5. Knowing today's NBA, and do I want to draft Scottie Barnes 5? That would be a tough pick for me, because how much he's going to improve on the shooting? Yeah, I can improve, but how much? I'm just like, man, that's a tough call, and that's why NBA GMs get paid the big bucks. You got to make the right, you got to make the right projection. You know what I mean?
I think that enigma is a good one, and I think your other one, you have Jaylen Johnson on yours, right? No. Yeah, you do. Yeah, Jaylen Johnson, and then who's your third, and then I'll go into a couple of mine.
Yeah, mine would be right before him is Jonathan Kuminga. Again, I'm going toward more of the top. At some of the G League games I saw, I just didn't see a top 4 or 5 pick. I saw a top 4 or 5 specimen, like how he looks, how he moves, just his percentages and his decision making at times. I didn't really see left something to be desired for me. I didn't see a 4 or 5 pick, and you have him at 6, obviously, but to the Thunder, who obviously can do a lot with that pick. And I just wanted to throw down Kuminga's his numbers. 13 games. He did 15.8 points, 7.2 rebounds, so he could do that. 38% from the field, 38.7, 24% from 3, 62% from the free throw line. Devin, his assist to turnover ratio is basically 1-1. Again, he's 18 years old. He's playing older men in that league, but at some point, looking at those raw numbers, oh boy, like is that shooting percentage because he doesn't understand the nuances of shot selection that could be fixed, or is he just not going to pick that up and he's going to struggle in that regard going forward? It's hard to say, but he's 18 years old, so you think there's a lot of growth there. He can mature, he can get better. But when I saw those G League games, I know at times he looked really good and people elevated his stock, but that's because his stock was already lower than Jalen Green's. Jalen Green had nowhere to go but to maintain his stock or down, whereas Kuminga had nowhere to go but up, in my opinion. What are you going to, he had more question marks. So that's what I see is his stats are nowhere near Jalen Green's.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with your 3 that you already put out there. I'll add a couple more just for debate purposes. James Boudnight from UConn.
Yeah.
Number 8 to the Magic is where I have him going, and that's high. That's high. He's a big combo guard, NBA style scorer. Crafty with the ball, good jump shooter, and a guy who can create his own shot off the bounce. But is James Boudnight good enough to be a number 8 overall pick in the NBA draft? I mean, Anthony Bennett went number 1 in a draft, so I guess there's no telling until the ball goes up in the next NBA season and we see how good this guy is. I think he's talented enough to go this high. Obviously, I have him slotted here. and I think you have his numbers up, Ronnie. Let me find.
Yeah, there's his numbers on the.
Yeah, I'm gonna get it right now.
So they're in kind of an order.
Yeah, 18.7 points per game, 5.7 rebounds per game, 1.8 assists per game. So that shows, Ronnie, that not much of a playmaker for teammates. 44.7% from the field, from overall from the field, and then 29.3% from the college three, Ronnie. It could be a case of bad shot selection or the fact that he had to basically take all the tough shots off the bounce late in the shot clock on that UConn team. He's going to be an interesting one for me. I think Corey Kispert's going to be interesting to me, Ronnie, because are you content in taking a potentially, one-trick pony style player that high in the draft? I mean, can you defend at the NBA level? We know he's going to hit shots at the NBA level, but when those closeouts get quicker and faster and longer, can he put it on the deck a little bit and create for himself and teammates? That's going to be an interesting one for me too. And then Cameron Thomas, man, I think we'll talk about, our sleeper, quote unquote sleepers next. Yeah. I have him slotted at 16 to Oklahoma City. I think he's the best pure scorer in this draft. The best just
I really like Cameron Thomas. We've talked about him many pods. We saw him, I got to see him a lot, evaluate him a lot. And yeah, he's a talented player. Is it, like you said, is it a case of some of his percentages? Is it, too many me guys on that LSU team, or is he just a volume player?
I mean, he could be a volume player, but you look at guys in the NBA right now who are volume players. I mean, Carmelo Anthony made a career out of being a volume player, but obviously Carmelo Anthony's 6'8". Devin Booker, would you consider him a volume player? I might. Yeah. A guy like that who can score in so many different ways and hit shots, off balance, tough, contested, and be able to kind of create that space that he does off the dribble. I mean, he's just really tough to guard, and guys like that excel in the NBA. In his 1 year at LSU, he averaged 23 points a game, Ronnie. 40% from the field, 32% from three, 88% from the free throw line. So not bad numbers. He shot the ball 17 times, man. So he definitely is not 17 times a game. He's not afraid to get him up, and I respect.
And he didn't have the ball in his hand. Our guy Javonte Smart had the ball in his hand a lot. I saw LSU a lot in their conference tournament, in their going into the tournament. They had some players that were very interesting to follow because some of them are NBA prospects, and they had a lot of good players. Mm-hmm. And it just, man, like you said, Cam Thomas, is he, as you said, is he a shoot first approach? Is he going to be able to tailor his game to wherever he goes? Can he create a little bit more playmaking and pick up his defense?
Sure.
Can he do that?
I haven't slotted to Oklahoma City right now, so at 16. So I don't really think I want him to tailor his game. I think I want him coming in and putting the ball into the basket, and that's what he does. Especially for a young Oklahoma City team that has a solid point guard in Theo Maledon that they drafted in the last draft. Good player, has a lot of upside. They got I can't really say his name, but they call him Poku, the 7-footer, kind of a little mix of like Kristaps Porzingis and Dirk Nowitzki. He came on late in the season and was really good. So you put a guy like Cameron Thomas who can draw that much defensive attention on the court because of his scoring ability, that opens up a whole wide range of things for other guys to do, especially in the NBA with the spacing. Yeah, and
you mentioned we mentioned some guys that have some question marks or they're enigmas in this draft. They can, fall or come up. The guys you mentioned, very interesting. Kuminga I mentioned, and Cam Thomas, those are the teams that mean you're following kind of closely because they have a lot of picks. The Thunder. Mm-hmm. Same thing with the Warriors, with Mitchell and Jaylen Johnson. They have some, I guess they have some options is what I'm saying. They can make trades. They can go back. They can move forward. The Thunder, they have a lot of options, as do the Rockets with some of the picks they have. And they're obviously in rebuilding mode. So they're going to just say, hey, you know what? Maybe they are going to make a trade. But I think they're going to say, you know what? We want Mobley or do we want Green? Then we're going to keep them. And then in the later picks they can make a move. So it's obviously some of the teams are a little more, they have a little less leeway because maybe they have a veteran roster or they don't have as many picks, obviously. Mm-hmm. The Thunder got a lot of picks coming up in the future. I just can't see the Rockets needing number 23 and number 24. Right. What do how about later in the better teams, Devin? The Suns, 76ers, Nets, maybe even early into the second round. One thing I'm obviously going to see is I'm very interested is Ayo Dosunmu from Illinois, the point guard. Josh Christopher in that range, maybe 32, 33, 34. Quentin Grimes, Day'Ron Sharpe from North Carolina. And then another guy who I thought maybe was going to get a little bit more buzz around in the NBA. I don't know about his full game, is from Villanova, the forward, who people thought was really highly regarded coming out of high school.
Jeremiah Robinson Earl.
Yeah, Jeremiah Robinson Earl looks like he's just kind of fallen. So very interesting scenario with some of those name players we know that were good college players or came into college as highly regarded guys, and what happened to them.
Yeah, I can pull. Right, I can pull. Yeah, what happened to them? Maybe one day we'll do a what happened to them show because there's plenty of those. There's plenty of those examples. Let's pull the draft board back up. So
yeah,
you mentioned end of the first round.
Yeah,
and then into the early second round. So you look, Miles Mcbride, potential first round pick, unranked. Jared Butler, 101.67. Joe Wieskamp, 58.3. And then you look at Quentin Grimes, Josh Christopher, both rated on average in the top 10. Ayo Dosunmu, I think his kind of varied a little bit. He's at 32, but I think in one of them he might have been rated a little bit higher than most. No, I guess not. Not. Maybe at one point he was rated.
I think at one point he was rated a little higher than that.
Yeah. The Morgan Park guard who obviously went to Illinois and was just a really productive player. I think he's an enigma, Ronnie. I think second round, I'm
a little surprised he's not in the more of the 20 range to 25. Maybe there's some questions about his speed, his mobility, and maybe his consistent 3-point ball.
Yep. Those are the question marks that come up for me when I watch him play at Illinois. Obviously, though, he's a winner. He's tough. He's physical,
pretty big,
strong. He's got an NBA body, and I think he's a guy who could definitely outplay his draft position, or a guy on draft night who goes higher than expected because maybe there's one team out there who was like, "Oh, damn, we really like this guy. We really need him." You never know. You never know.
Look, that's going another guy to the Thunder. I mean, right now.
You would think I'm a Thunder fan. I want them to load up.
Yeah, like the Thunder could package all this and maybe get a veteran that you don't know. Maybe they want to trade up, and then I guess we got to talk a little bit about the Thunder. Obviously, he got traded, but I'm thinking of, the Lakers and Chris Paul just lost that series with the Suns. Are the Lakers really thinking about moving and trying to make a move to get Chris Paul and or Russell Westbrook, and how will that affect the draft? How will that affect the team's, salary caps, that kind of thing?
Well, so Russell Westbrook is with the Wizards, right? The Wizards had the 15th pick, so they'll keep that pick. And I mean, if the Lakers somehow swing a trade for Russell Westbrook with the Wizards, the 22 pick will be in Washington.
That may have to include them. That they may have to include. They were for sure. Include that.
Yeah, unless it's a package that's like Dennis Schroeder, Kyle Kuzma. I can't think of anyone else. Anyone would want off the Lakers roster other than LeBron and AD, because that roster turned out to be horrible. That's the only pick the Lakers have, Ronnie, in the whole draft. So I don't see any draft picks really involved in a trade from the Lakers or to the Suns for Chris Paul or whatever it may be. I think the trade baits you're going to see are here with the Thunder, and also with the Rockets, and then I can see Orlando trying to do something. They have 5'8", it's going on 33, and any more? No, 5'8", 33. So those are all valuable picks, Ronnie. Those are all valuable picks that I could see them trying to make a move for a guy who is a veteran to replace a veteran that they had in Nikola Vucevic. and try to figure out a way to stay relevant, because obviously Aaron Gordon's gone too. So that's a roster and rebuilding. Yeah,
they definitely are rebuilding. Obviously, there's a lot of intriguing players. To just go back to the top of the whole draft. Like you said, it's a little top heavy. When I'm looking through these various picks, potential picks, numbers, I don't see this game-changing 1984, 1996 draft that people are talking about.
I'm with you.
I don't see that. I see good players, but like a guy like Zaire Williams, there's question marks about. Chris Duarte, he's 24-year-old. He's a good player at Oregon. How good is he going to be in kind of like a plug him into a veteran team or a pretty good team, and how much can he contribute?
Sure.
There's obviously a lot of international players that are good, but there's also some guards. I see a glut of guards.
Yeah.
Nashawn Highland, Trey Mann, Jaden Springer, Miles McBride. These are all guys 6'2", 6'3", 6'4". How many of them are going to be that good?
That's a good point.
Small guards, there's only one CP3. There's only so many good small guards,
Yeah. No,
but there's a lot here for picking. I mean, if you want one, there's a lot to choose from.
Yeah, that's a really good point. And I think it's a lack. There's just really a lack of true big men nowadays, right? So it's harder to find and bring on a big who's ready to contribute right away. I mean, obviously Wiseman had some good games, but he still has a lot of growing to do, Ronnie. And he was supposed to be the best big man since sliced bread. You know what I mean? So Kai Jones is probably the one true 5, and is he even a true 5? Evan Mobley's kind of a 4 or 5 hybrid type player. But yeah, I think anyone who's selling it as like a Bird Magic draft, or even a LeBron, Darko, D Wade, Carmelo Anthony draft is way overselling this one.
I think so, because a lot of those players are players besides LeBron, and even LeBron was really proven. Obviously, he was a once in a decade generation type prospect. Like, Dwayne Wade had proven something at Marquette. Carmelo led his team to NCAA title kind of thing. I just think it looked like he was going to be a big time NBA scorer, and he turned out to be. So
the one unproven guy in those 4 picks was Darko, and he didn't pan out.
Oh yeah, Detroit. I mean, what would Detroit have had on those Chauncey Billups, Rasheed Wallace teams if they had Dewey Wade or Carmelo? Yeah. Would they have packaged it for another superstar? Who knows? It worked out okay. They won a title, so maybe Detroit. Obviously, Detroit liked what they got in last year's draft, and I don't think most people don't think they're going to go wrong with Cade Cunningham. He's going to be a starting guard in the NBA.
Yeah,
and he's kind of proven. And like you mentioned about some of the players, their stats may be because. You definitely mentioned that with Jane Boatnight at UConn, that his stats may be a little altered because he had to carry the load. Well, Cade had to, and his numbers are still really good.
Yeah.
20.1 points, 6.2 rebounds, 3.5 assists, shot over 40% from the 3. His overall field goal percentage is a little low again because, like you said, shot clock running out. But then when you look at his 84.6% free throw shooting, you realize he can shoot. And his turnover is a little high, but again, that's because he has the ball in his hands. So many guys on this draft and recent drafts need the ball in their hands, and that's what I'm a little concerned about. Some of these guys that are 6'1", 6'3", there's only so many impactful guys that I see on a day-in and day-night basis that are that size.
Yeah, I'm not comparing what I do at Fullerton Junior College to the NBA, or just trying to draw a parallel. A lot of the guys we get are guys that in the high school level are used to having the ball in their hands and doing whatever they want, whenever they want.
Correct.
So you can imagine at that level, the junior college level, you have guys who need to learn to play without the ball. You can imagine the NBA level, guys who need to learn how to play without the ball. Because like we've said over and over and over, 2% of the NBA plays with the ball in their hands. LeBron James, Kyrie Irving, Steph Curry, James Harden, Donovan Mitchell. Even Devin Booker plays off the ball. So Chris Paul's on the ball. You look at a guy like Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant plays off the ball, and he's the top 4 player in the world. So Kawhi Leonard, is he ball dominant? No. Paul George is not ball dominant either. So these guys know how to play the game without the basketball in their hands. And a lot of these guys that are on this board don't know how to do that. And that's a scary type of proposition. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because Jonathan Kuminga is a good example. He's going to have to learn not to have less volume to be more effective. He had a lot of volume with the G League team, and at times it looked good, but other times the percentages didn't equate out to being like, hey, that's how an NBA team's going to use them. They're not going to want them shooting, 38%, 36%. Like, no way. They need it higher.
Right.
Kind of as you mentioned. So let's talk a little bit about some of the guys that are core of our followers and our listeners and our viewers like to talk about. Some guys that like on the West Coast are guys that are a little bit more local.
Okay.
Obviously, we can even include, Jalen Green in that. He, went to San Joaquin Memorial for 3 years and he, Evan Mobley, Rancho Christian, had a terrific career. And then we get into some of the guys who are projected to go lower. And, Zaire Williams, he kind of didn't have a great season at Stanford to people's liking. Again, look at his consensus ranking was 5.67. So most people thought he was pretty much a top 6 player in his 220 class. And then Zaire Williams, he had some poor shooting games. Maybe by percentage-wise, he was a little bit weaker than people thought, but he has great size for his position. Again, he's a local guy from Sierra Canyon. Then we got B.J. Boston, who was kind of his running mate at Sierra Canyon, and he didn't really have a knock-off-the-block season ever at Kentucky.
Right.
He kind of – look at his consensus ranking, Devin. It's right around where – he was basically ranked one spot higher than Zaire.
Yeah.
If Zaire's 5.67, he's 5.33. That means they were ranked 5.6 or 6.7, depending on what scouting service we're talking about, what national recruiting service. And he's 6'6" guard, struggled at times, maybe game in and game out. But look at his ranking, 6'6" and 4.
Yeah.
Right? But he has a lot of ability. So again, talk a little bit in your perspective, and then Josh Christopher from Mayfair too is on the board. Maybe a late first rounder, maybe an early second rounder. I think people coming into college thought he was going to be a little bit higher than that in this draft. I don't think me and you thought necessarily that was the case.
No, I love Josh, great kid, and obviously we've covered him since he was a middle school player. Yeah. We watched him grow. We watched him, really elevate his game into an NBA scorer. I think he has a lot of people compare him to Nick Young, and I think he kind of resembles what Nick Young does as far as style of play goes. He's high volume.
Sure.
And he could either be on or there's potential that he could be off. But as far as the scoring package goes, Ronnie, Josh is as good of a scorer as anyone in this draft. He really is. And his body type, it's 6'4", really strong. He's pretty explosive. Like you look at his legs, and people are like, "Oh, he's not really explosive." He's explosive, and he battled some injuries last year at Arizona State. So it wouldn't surprise me if someone took a chance on Josh Christopher late first round. It wouldn't surprise me if he slipped into the late second round, where we have him slotted right now at 33 to Orlando.
Yeah,
and it wouldn't surprise me if he goes, in that second round or in that first round, that he has a really good NBA career, just because of the fact that, we talk to him a lot. We've been around him a lot. He's a driven guy. He's confident. He believes in himself. And a lot of what success is in life is believing in yourself. And Josh Christopher has no
problems there. And
the
two things that I worry about him, and I can see why you have him where you have him slotted, is his wiggle to get by guys, and then like shot selection and how much he's going to be effective without the ball.
Yeah.
I think he's a good explosive player, strong, like you said, but how much wiggle does he have? Does he going to get in the key? And look at his ranking, and look at his where people projected him, 8, 10, and 11. So he's basically a top 10 player.
Yeah.
But what transpired that he wasn't a top 10 player? Probably some of the things me and you just spoke about is he can play out of the guard, because it's 6'3", 6'4". As a shooting guard, that's not great size. And some of maybe his verticality above the rim and getting by guys with the wiggle, having the ability to drive by guys consistently and easily, not taking the amount of dribbles he did at Mayfair or Arizona State. It's going to have to be much faster.
Yep. Yeah, I think a big thing for him that will help him in
getting into his move. Yeah.
Yeah. What you're discussing right now is the catch and shoot three, Ron. I think that's going to be really important for him to be able to hit that catch and shoot three, because if a guy can respect your ability to shoot without using your dribble, right? Shoot with triple threat ability, be able to pass, shoot, or dribble, whatever. It makes you much harder to guard if you can shoot a catch and shoot three. And I have Brandon Boston Jr.'s numbers up right now, and the reason why he's so low is a variety of things. He didn't have a good year at Kentucky. And when you're at Kentucky and you don't have a good year, the spotlight is already on you because you're at Kentucky. And then that shit just gets hotter. The spotlight just gets hotter and brighter because you're at Kentucky.
Yeah.
So he shot 30% from three, 35% from the field overall. So that's 38% from 2-point range. That's just not going to cut it. And then not a great defender, not super physical.
Gets knocked off the ball a bit.
Yeah, gets knocked off balance when he tries to drive. Needs to really, get his base built better. I'm going to create like a workout video, base built better, and just do a full leg workout.
We're talking about a lot of these guys that, like you said, they can score at the college level. We know they're great high school scorers, but there's some question marks about their ability to do that at the highest level. And I think Zaire Williams has that question mark as well. But I think in Zaire's case, he's bigger, maybe even a little longer. He's going up in this draft, from where people say, "Oh God, he's struggling, not having a good year." But I think people are starting to see some of the things he can do. He's a little upright to me. He doesn't get by guys easily. He's upright. He's always been upright. But obviously he got away with it. It didn't matter at the high school level, and I'm not even sure it mattered much in the college level. But that's going to be a thing to watch in the pro level.
Yeah. So Boston shot 30% from three. Josh Christopher 30.5% from the college three.
Yeah.
Let's pull up Zaire Williams. Obviously, he has a smaller sample size because he didn't play as many games. Actually, you know what? Him and Christopher might have played the same amount of games.
Yeah, he had some injury issues too.
Yeah. Zaire Williams 29.1% from three. So they're all in that similar range. I think the difference with Zaire, again, is size at 6'8", mobility, and then mobility on the perimeter for his size is what I'm saying.
Correct.
And then
mobility on the perimeter.
Right, and then I think he has a higher IQ, higher basketball IQ, just simple plays, better passer, might be a more efficient ball handler, does more with less, does more with less time on the ball, which is extremely
correct. And that's the point I was making about, you mentioned the catch and shoot with Josh Christopher. At 6'4", he holds the ball a lot to get into that shot.
Sure.
That's going to have to be cleaned up if he's going to be a long-term player.
Yep. No doubt. Let me pull up Zaire Williams one more time before we jump to our next topic. So as you can see here, Zaire Williams.
He had all the accolades.
All the accolades.
People thought he was great. Again, I thought he came on late for some. Obviously, our guy Frank Burleson was a big fan of his. Were a big fan of his. Guys, this guy's really good. Yeah. And then everybody caught on late and he went 5. And then all of a sudden in college, it's he's having a bad season or whatever, whatever the case may be. He started strong.
He did.
I remember he started strong last year, and then he maybe kind of tailed off. He had some nagging injuries. Did he even finish the season, or did he have some nagging injuries? Thought he had some nagging injuries.
Yeah, he didn't finish the season. Let me pull up how many games he played. One second. Let me pull it up real quick. Yeah, he definitely wasn't as, I guess, he became highly touted later on in his high school career, rather than being a guy who was wire to wire, considered a top 10 prospect. He wasn't. His freshman year and sophomore year, he was relatively unknown on the national level.
Correct. We knew about him.
Yeah, because obviously he played locally at Sherman Oaks Notre Dame, and then obviously
it's very interesting in this draft. Remember when we went to that Mission Viejo tournament and we saw Zaire and we saw Jalen Green with San Joaquin Memorial?
We did.
Their first high school games.
Yep.
Doesn't seem like that long ago, but time has moved by fast.
Man,
and they were terrific.
I wish
Jalen was ahead of Zaire at that point, but you could see Zaire had a lot of ability.
Yeah, and I think the game really just came so easy to Zaire. He didn't really have to force the issue. He didn't have plays drawn for him. He kind of, slashed, got offensive rebounds, slashed off the ball, finished, hit threes, catch and shoot threes, and that was like, oh dang, he was probably 6'6" at that time.
Yeah,
and like if he gets anywhere near 6'9", he's a high major potential NBA player, and it ended up happening. But yeah, I wish, man, that Mission Viejo tournament used to be so good, and we got to see a lot of young talent, and unfortunately, that's just not the case anymore. So, looking at Zaire's, he played 20 games, so I guess
20 games,
majority of their season, I guess.
Yeah, he played the majority of the season.
Yeah, so he started out first 2 games, 19 points, 10 points. Middle of the season, 12, 16, 17, 12, 16, 17 again. And then he had some games where he just wasn't very good. 7-6, 9-2 against Washington State in a loss. Wow. So, man, yeah, I mean, like we said, back to the draft board real quick. Like we said, it's up here. Evan Mobley, Jalen Green, the 2 best West Coast guys available on the board. And after the top 4, number 5 is where the draft begins. Number 5 is where the draft begins.
It's very interesting because it's Scottie Barnes right now that's looking like he's probably going to go ahead of Jonathan Kuminga, where it wasn't the case 2 months ago.
And I think the biggest reason is, Ronnie, is because he showed that he could play within a system at the college level where Kuminga went G League. And obviously Jalen Green, his stock, like you said earlier, his stock is not going to fluctuate very much just because of the athlete that he is and the playmaker that he has the potential to be. Jonathan Kuminga is limited, and he showed that.
Yeah.
He showed that in a G League, and Scottie Barnes showed that he could pass, dribble, and shoot. I mean, not to the 3-point line, but like a Draymond Green, a little bit better. Little bit better rebounding Draymond Green.
Skilled Draymond Green, yeah. That's a very attractive thing, especially since Draymond showed he can do that on a high-level team, a championship-level team. Now, obviously, the Magic doesn't have the personnel that the Warriors have, but you get our picture of what we're trying to paint of Scottie. If you've seen Scottie play, he's played at a lot of events. He's played on a national stage with Mcbride. I mean, he played just as much on national TV with Mcbride as Florida State, it seems like. But it's like, if you pull some of these other players in this draft and some of the other good players that we know in this, in 222, they all would want to play Scottie. They'd want Scottie Barnes on their team rather than not on their team. And there's some guys in this draft, they'd be like, hell no, I don't want him on our team. It goes back to what you're saying about the volume, either holding the ball or the volume of shots they need to be effective.
Yeah, I think the one thing that sets Scottie Barnes apart from Kuminga in what we've seen is motor. You can always count on Scottie Barnes to come and play hard.
Yeah.
Always. He always brings his best effort. He always, plays with a high basketball IQ. He's a good passer. He can dribble it. He can rebound the defensive glass. He can lead the break. He can do a little bit of everything that you want in a point forward style NBA player. Like we said, a little bit more skilled, potentially Draymond Green. Where then you look at Kuminga, Ronnie, and it's just sometimes it's like body language. Sometimes it's motor. It's like bad shot.
What is he doing when he doesn't have the ball in his hands? Standing.
And that's the one thing you can't do is stand. And is he going to be able to guard the wings at the NBA level? I think Scottie Barnes defensively might be one of the better on-ball defenders in this draft. And maybe one of the better team defenders, as in, reading, rotating, reading coverages, taking charges, being in the right defensive position. I don't see a better defender other than maybe Evan Mobley in this draft than Scottie Barnes. And that's why I think he's so valued.
Coveted, yeah.
And
that makes sense.
Guard-wise, the best guard defender is Davion Mitchell. We don't want to skip that. The best guard, on-ball, guard defender, guard to guard is Davion Mitchell.
Yeah.
But as far as team defense goes and full defensive concepts for size and all that, Scottie Barnes and Evan Mobley are right there as well.
Yeah. And like you said, another thing that takes advantage of, and we're going to talk about this more in our draft special, the day of the draft, Thursday, July 29th, about 6:30 p.m. Eastern time. If you guys want to please tune in, is for Barnes. What I think separates him, Moses Moody, those guys were able to play their projected position in high school. With the way, if you look at a guy who maybe went to goes to a poor high school, that not as strong, obviously, is they got to play out of position. So then they got to readjust when they get to college, and now they got to maybe adjust again. I think that's where Moses Moody, obviously that could be 3 players from Montverde in the first round, and you have Moses Moody 15. There, 15. Is he really played the shooting guard and off the ball at Montverde because he played with Cade Cunningham?
Right.
So, and look at what it translated for him. Look where he was ranked, and then in his one college season, people obviously saw something good because he's already in the draft and he's expected to go higher than where he was ranked the year before. So
you know what they saw? They saw he can shoot that damn rock, Ronnie.
Yeah. Yeah, and he has pretty good size, and he can move. He defends. That whole team defended. That was one of their – obviously, Scottie Barnes was the leader of that. But almost all those guys defended. Day'Ron Sharpe, Cade Cunningham, Moses. They and then the 5th starter on that team was obviously Caleb Houston, who's going to Michigan. He's not in this draft, but he was the only underclassman on the team, which is coming down as we'll see on draft night. But wow, people are going to be really wowed by that. I don't want to get into that too much. We'll talk a little bit more of that on the day of the draft as it unfolds. Okay. We'll save some for the hopper and later. But I did want to mention before we kind of wrap this up, Devin, the guys who maybe not will get drafted, or the guys who are kind of on the cusp, and that includes some local guys. Does that include our guy from Sierra Canyon, Dwayne Washington from Ohio State?
He's on the cusp.
Who's kind of also on the cusp or right toward the bottom. Very interesting. Our guy from Michigan who was in the G League, who just had okay moments, wasn't really that impactful at time, but he showed glimpses and flashes, was Isaiah Todd.
Yeah.
And he can go anywhere in the low 50s. Maybe somebody likes him higher, or maybe he doesn't get drafted. I think right now people are kind of projecting him to be drafted. And then Deshaun Nix, who's a West Coast guy who played at Trinity International for our guy, Coach Locke. He didn't go to UCLA, and he showed up to the G League, and it was like, wow, he was all eyes were on him because, again, that was only basketball in town at the time.
Yep.
It was only one team, and people have to they were paying close attention to him, and he didn't really come off the block as he should have physically. Maybe he has the skills, but physically he wasn't in the tip-top shape he needed to be to move up in this draft.
Yeah, his body wasn't right. And Isaiah Todd, another one, I have him at 52 to the Pistons. He could be a situation where a team really likes him and wants to take a chance on him and thinks he has a lot of potential, because he does. Or it could be it could be he doesn't get drafted. But
they saw enough of what they saw.
Yeah, and I think he'll end up late second round. I think someone won't let him fall through the cracks unless there's something I don't know, because I'm not that kind of insider. And I have Deshaun Nix at 60 overall, the last pick, Ronnie, because like you said, he came into the G League just not ready, not ready. He would have really benefited from year at UCLA, I think, under that program, and kind of just getting his body right and all that good stuff. A couple other guys, Ronnie, in the second round. So before we jump off, give me a couple guys in the second round, 1 or 2 guys who you like as guys who will be good long-term, or maybe a guy that you think is an enigma.
Okay, let's go with the guys I like and they can maybe do something. A little bit higher, but I mentioned Miles Mcbride. I like him because he went to Moeller High School. He was a total winner. I thought he was like a borderline high school All-American. I thought he should have been in most people's top 100 because he won in high school. Wasn't really ranked. You know what I mean? Went to West Virginia, did a good job there. Can shoot it pretty well. Tough, can defend. It can run a team. I think he has a chance to be a good – if you're looking for a backup, he's a guy you should be looking at. A backup who can contribute. Obviously, you want all the guards you get to be starters, but at the value that he's going at, he can be a hell of a backup.
Yeah.
And maybe he is. If he went into the Suns, that'd be a hell of a thing for him. Obviously, he couldn't probably be on the court much with Chris Paul at the same time because they're kind of two small guards, but he can learn the game. And then the second guy I wanted to mention was more towards the bottom, and that is John Petty. I've watched him for a long time. He played with Travel Ball. I got to see him. If he can show that he has enough ball handling, I think he can stick in the NBA, obviously, where he might go. Or maybe he doesn't get drafted. Maybe he comes in as a free agent to a team. I think he has what it takes to stick around. There'll be a few guys like that. He's always he's always been a pretty good shooter. And if he just needs to improve on his new nuances of the game, maybe being off the ball, handling it. He's not too big for a small forward, but he was very highly regarded, and he played a lot in Vegas with his travel team. I think he even played with his high school teammate Jameson at various events. And I just thought he was always a good player. I mean, that's reflected in his high school ranking. I think that's pretty fair. ESPN obviously liked him. They had him 22, which basically makes him a McDonald's All-American. But, he was a high school All-American. He played in the Jordan brand. And I just thought he had a good game. I think he showed he was kind of like an NBA prospect. I'm not really sure at Alabama. They got a lot of scoring at Alabama, but I just don't think he quite handled the ball good enough to be maybe like a college All-American or higher in this draft.
Okay. So the guy I want to talk about is this guy. Mr. College Basketball.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at his numbers. And obviously that's not everything that's, transferable or translatable.
Sure.
But this dude put up insane numbers at Iowa. And last season was 24 points, 8 rebounds, and where's his assist numbers? 1.7 assists, but 24 and 8. And the year before that, 24 and 9, almost 10. Is he a Tyler Hansbrough type, Ronnie?
I think so. If you look at, here's what I'm trying to figure out. In high school, he's in the 105s as a consensus ranking. So
right.
Whether people question his foot speed, maybe his overall ability, and then he has look at his ranking there. And then he has a hell of a college career. Now it's back to the same thing where he's ranked in high school. Like, there's all these question marks. But me and you are the same as we like production. He was on my high school All-American team because I thought he produced, and it produced that translated to Iowa. It's kind of similar to what we said about John Petty. Like, he produced state championships, he produced, and it, for some reason, there's still question marks maybe about his speed, his mobility, but I thought he answered some of those at Iowa, but maybe it's just the NBA game's so fast and a true back to the basket guy that's not Evan Mobley's not that valid if he can't move. And even Evan Mobley's not truly a back to the basket guy.
True. Yeah, I think limitations as far as vertical explosiveness and lateral speed and all that and foot speed up and down the court are the biggest issues, but he's big strong dude who plays hard. It's going to be interesting to see if he's drafted, where he's drafted, and what kind of career he has. Another guy I want to look at, Ronnie, Matthew Hurt from Duke. Obviously, his ranking 12.33 over here. Have him slotted 53 to New Orleans. He was a highly regarded
player.
Went to Duke. Didn't really have that great 2 seasons.
Yeah, he's class of 2019.
Yeah, he didn't have that. His freshman year was a little underwhelming and kind of. Obviously Duke was under some different circumstances because Coach K was kind of reaching the end of his ropes there. And maybe there was other things going on, behind the scenes that we didn't really know about, and maybe took a little bit more pressure onto the players to win, and kind of hurt his, ability to produce. But that's all speculation, obviously, but you never know. He's a really talented dude, 6'9", long, shoots it. I know our guy, Charlie Torres, our guy at Orange Lutheran now, from La Mirada, he's been working him out, and he thinks he's one of the best shooters in the draft. And I take Charlie's word for what it is. I believe the things that he says. And obviously Matthew Hurt, 18.3 points, and 6.2 rebounds as a sophomore. And his freshman year, he only averaged 9.7 points. So he took a big leap. So maybe
that will continue.
Yeah, maybe he's a guy who ends up continuing to get better and better. But he also could be like a Kyle Singler type who is just kind of a role guy for a little bit and then, plays overseas or whatever it may be.
Yeah, and
That's not
where he's slotted to get picked, that might not be bad, but it's just saying we're kind of saying why, maybe he was a little overvalued in high school. We did see him at down at the Ladera Sports Complex for D1 Minnesota. I'm sure you were there. I've seen him a few other times. I did see a really good player, but like you said, I'm not sure I saw a number 8 or 9 or 10 player in the country.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. And then
that's okay. Sure. Obviously he went to Duke, so people probably thought he was very good. But like you said, Duke hasn't been that great
right
the last couple of years. Obviously, since the R.J. Barrett, Zion team, in the last 2 years they were kind of struggling at times, especially last year. They struggled, and then to see a Jaylen Johnson type recruit just leave the team, that's not what you expect out of Duke. So, like you said, it was the end of Coach K's run, and maybe they're going to have a reset, and maybe they're going to, kind of revamp there and continue to produce players at a high level. But I'm not seeing that. I think where you have him slotted, it's fine.
Okay. And then the last guy before we close this out is Kessler Edwards, a Southern California guy. And I forgot where I had him slotted. Let me go back. 44 to Brooklyn. I like this. Yeah. I'm a big Kessler Edwards guy. I've always been a big Kessler Edwards guy. Yeah. Obviously unranked in high school. Didn't play on a shoe circuit team. He played for Prodigy, Cameron Murray, and Tracy Murray. Run that program, and it's a really well-run program. They put out a lot of good players.
Correct. And if you saw him then, if you were totally projecting, you could say if this guy can grow 2-3 inches, he looked like a top 100 player. I see why he wasn't ranked, but I thought he was pretty close to that.
Yeah.
Especially toward the end of his senior year.
Yeah. This picture you're seeing is from when he was in high school. So he's put on a lot of weight. And he has grown a couple inches. Obviously, 6'8" he was probably 6'7" when he graduated high school. He's still young, one of the younger players in his class when he graduated, and had a really solid career at Pepperdine. But I think, at 6'9", and he's a lot bigger, a lot stronger, really well built, really smart. And again, Ronnie, a guy who doesn't need the ball in his hands to be effective. He can play off the ball. He can guard multiple positions, and he's played within a team concept at Etiwanda, which we know develops, really high-level, high IQ guys. And then at Pepperdine, also played in a similar style format as that, as a guy who, he played alongside Colby Ross, point guard, high-scoring point guard, who was one of the, top scorers in the West Coast Conference when he was there. I think he might be the Pepperdine's all-time leading scorer. And Colby Ross had the ball in his hands, I'd say 97% of the time. Yeah. Kind of a high-volume, high-dribble guy. And Kessler Edwards still is on everyone's draft board regardless of that because he brings so many different things to the table.
Yeah. He's pretty versatile. He can score a bit. He can defend. He can move. Team-first guy. Like you said, he's probably not that much younger than some of these guys. Yeah. Who played in college for 2 years. Right. He's probably not that much older, I should say. Not younger, but older. They're not; those guys are not that much younger, is what I meant to say. But yeah, it's a very interesting. There's going to be a lot of California guys or West Coast guys drafted as we're looking and we talk about them. That just goes to show how strong our 219 or 220, high school classes were. They were very good. There was some good ball. I mean, Onyeka Okongwu's already in the NBA. Melo's already in the NBA. Even if you want to throw Marvin Bagley leaving a college early, he played at Sierra Canyon. So it's very interesting. Want to throw something out here and see what you think, Devin, as we close up. Okay. Because BJ Boston and Zaire Williams are probably going to get drafted. Obviously, Zaire's going to get drafted. Yeah. And most likely BJ too. As you look at Amari Bailey, who's California Mr. Basketball, who was a junior at Sierra Canyon this year. And you just look at some of his teammates. Okay, I mean, this is a pretty amazing thing and an interesting number. Again, in the next, we'll talk a little bit about more on draft day in our draft special. He was teammates with KJ Martin, who's already in the NBA. Teammates with Cassius Stanley in the NBA. Teammates with Zaire. Teammates with BJ Boston. And then that's already 4 guys in the NBA. Then you look at, is Scottie Pippen Jr. going to be in the NBA? Like, meaning, is he going to play a game, regardless if he gets drafted, right?
Yeah, he could. Yeah.
You know, that's 5 guys. Then you look at his current teammates. Ronnie. Is Ronnie going to play a game in the NBA? You know, it's just So what I'm trying to get at is our guy Amari Bailey might have like 5 or 6 teammates that played in the NBA, and then he might be in the NBA. Yeah. He might be one of the better ones of all those guys.
Right.
That's pretty crazy if you think about like high school, how many guys go to the NBA, like, and how many good players have gone through Sierra Canyon. And then Dwayne Washington, is he going to get drafted and play a 10-day contract or a 2-way contract? I mean, this guy, I'm speaking of, might have 5 or 6 teammates in the NBA. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, that is crazy. And another crazy stat before we leave, Ronnie, is that Montverde team could have how many players selected in this
draft? Yeah, 4 in the first round if Dayron goes in the first round. They'll have 3 for sure in the first round, and then Philip Petrusev, I want to say I don't want to botch his name.
Petrusev?
Correct. He played on the RJ Barrett team that won the national title in 2018. So, man, it's just these guys are going to these strong teams, and it's just I think in many ways you can't fault them. Look how it's preparing them.
Yeah.
And then it's pretty interesting to see these guys from Sierra Canyon. You know, as KJ Martin's already produced in the NBA. He's already played some games and some productive games. Cassius has had his moments. And Amari Bailey might be as good as all of them.
Yeah, for sure. It's going to be interesting to see what happens on draft night, which is a week from the time of this recording. Make sure you guys, after you watch this, prepare yourself, set a reminder for our 2nd annual draft party presented by Ballislife on draft night. We're going to start it hopefully around 3:15 or 3:30 Eastern time. Hopefully have Pacific time, 6:15, 6:30 Eastern time. Hopefully we're working on having a few guests on. We've already recorded a couple of special interviews that we're going to throw in during the draft party. So make sure you guys set a reminder to watch that. We'll promo it throughout the week. And also check out the Ballislife Podcast Network on YouTube. You can check out all of our podcasts.
Buckets and breakdowns.
In the paint, buckets and breakdowns.
Let's get technical.
On the rise, let's get technical with Rashid and Bonzi. We're hoping Rashid and Bonzi get on the draft party show next week. We appreciate you guys tuning in each and every week with us on the In the Paint show or on the rise, whatever podcast you listen to on the Ballislife Podcast Network. But until the next episode of the In the Paint show, Ronnie and Devin are signing off.